What is liminal space? A transitional space between one point in time to another, like a hotel lobby or a waiting room in a doctor's office. Wikipedia explains it like this. The term liminal space is used to describe a place or state of change or transition. This may be physical, like a doorway, or psychological, like the period of adolescence. Liminal space imagery often depicts the sense of in-between, capturing transitional places such as a stairwell or a road, unsettlingly devoid of people. The aesthetic may convey moods of eeriness, surrealness, nostalgia, or sadness, and elicit responses of both comfort and unease. I argue that World War I is itself a liminal space between the old world and the new, a war unlike any other previous or since. It aided in the advancement of many technologies and saw the end of older ones. It combined the old formations and tactics with new weapons with devastating results. Modern warfare exists largely in part due to the scale and sheer vastness of the Great War. Estimated casualties range from around 15 to 22 million deaths and about 23 million wounded military personnel, ranking it among the deadliest conflicts in human history. The First World War, or the Great War as it was called, was the first conflict to have airplanes, chemical warfare, tanks, newly developed helmets, as well as camouflage. It was one of the last conflicts to use horses on a large scale and use a Napoleonic style of column-by-column formations for the infantry. Later, this was changed to line-by-line formations, referenced in this U.S. Army Field Manual in 1917. It explains, "In making a rush, the leader of the unit gives the signal and leads the way. The rest follow. No attempt is made to keep a line, but each man rushes forward at a run, seeking only to reach the new halting position as quickly and with as little exposure as possible. When halted, the skirmishes need not be in a perfect line, but every advantage should be taken off the ground for concealment and protection." Prior to World War I, armies around the world had used smooth-bore muskets and then transitioned to a rifle barrel with a Minet ball in 1860. The Minet ball, or mini ball, is a type of hollow-based bullet designed by Claude Antoine Minet for muzzle-loaded rifled muskets, invented in 1846, shortly followed by the Minet rifle. The Minet ball came to prominence during the Crimean War and the American Civil War, where it was found to inflict significantly more serious wounds than earlier round musket balls. During the American Civil War, soldiers would line up in a single file line and take aim in the general direction of their enemy. With a smooth-bore musket, you couldn't be able to aim because the musket ball would shoot out of the barrel at a max of 200 yards. Reloading would take much longer for a second shot. It would be easier to use the bayonet after firing the first shot. On the other hand, a rifled barrel has a spiral carved into it, which allows for the bullet to spin and go much farther distance. This allows for the rifleman to aim appropriately where he needs it to go. Generally speaking, in the 1850s and 60s, colorful uniforms were used as a shock tactic. Wearing bright colors, charging at the enemy, was a way to intimidate and instill fear, especially when the average soldier had one shot with his musket and his bayonet. He had no way of defending himself against a large group of men with swords and bayonets coming towards him. These ideas continued into World War I with the Lebel rifle, the Gewehr 98, and the Lee Enfield. These are bolt-action rifles that only take a minute or two to cycle the next round, instead of having to manually stuff gunpowder down a barrel and add the individual rounds separately. This concept of using a bayonet as a means of close combat with infantry and charging towards the enemy with bayonets was still in the the standard practice of the early war period. Once machine guns became more common, plans changed to fire and maneuver and suppressing fire tactics. In 1914, most armies had carried on the Napoleonic-style uniforms. Just like in the decades previously, it was thought that the powerful colored uniforms would strike fear into the heart of the enemy. This was not the case, as most snipers and machine gunners used this high visibility as a target. By 1915, the French army switched from red pants and blue tunics to horizon blue pants and tunics. As trench warfare became the standard during the war, camouflage became more essential to survival. The German army transitioned to subdued belt buckles with darker gray uniforms by 1916. By the time the Americans joined the war in 1918, they had olive and khaki uniforms similar to the British Army. I have another video about this topic in more detail here. With the advent of more precise artillery, more armies began using trench warfare. This was a defense technique used against tanks as well. After World War I, tanks, airplanes, and chemical weapons were used more wildly, and countries trained their new recruits on how to handle these new threats. Originally, James Cohen created a steam-powered land ram in 1855, towards the end of the Crimean War. In August and September of 1915, a vehicle nicknamed Little Willie was constructed at William Foster & Co. The prototype of a new design that became the Mark I tank was demonstrated to the British Army on February 2, 1916. Although initially termed landships by the Landship Committee, production vehicles were named tanks to preserve secrecy. The term was chosen because of its resemblance to a steel water tank. Tanks such as the Sherman and Panzer in World War II built upon the previous breakthroughs from the First World War. Modern warfare would not be what it is today had the Great War not happened. Ironically called the War to End All Wars, it started a new progression into larger and more technical warfare. Like a threshold or in-between space, World War I was a transition from ceremonial uniforms to camouflage, from fighting on horseback to air combat, from infantry with bayonets to mechanized infantry. The War to End All Wars should be more appropriately named the War to Start All Wars. And on that note, thank you for watching. Let me know what you thought of the video, and if you learned something new. Thank you for your support. I hope you have a blessed day.